I have a container port in my Cyberpunk city, so now I need a ship for it. But normal container ships are kinda boring. Let's try to make them a little bit more interesting. While I built the ship, I found out it's actually quite hard to build a good looking ship and that I made some errors before I even started building it. So let me help you not fall into the same traps as I did. Hi, I'm Architect and welcome back to Neokito, the cyberpunk city I am building. Let's start with the ship. Because normal container ships look kinda boring, I will go for a catamaran design inspired by the HSV-2 from the US Navy. I go for the catamaran design instead of the normal monohull design, despite that I know that there are many reasons why container ships are monohull. But let's throw these reasons overboard, because we want a cool cyberpunk container ship, right? If you want to build a ship in Minecraft, I highly recommend building in a dry area. You don't want to build underwater, even in creative mode. It's way too hard and it makes too much hassle. I decided to create a provisional dry dock to solve this problem, so I could still see how this ship looks in comparison to the harbor. Also, you should have enough water depths in the area you want to build the ship in. An alternative to building a dry dock is to build the ship on land and then copy and paste it into water. If you build a ship, definitely start with the hull, otherwise you really fast will get the dimensions wrong. There are only two areas that are really hard to build, and that is the bow, the front of the ship, and the stern, the back of the ship. Because here you really have to think about complex three-dimensional forms. The middle is more or less a two-dimensional form / cross-section that you just stretch along the length of the middle part. For the bow, I tried to replicate the wave-piercing design of the HSV-2. It's composed of the two hulls that have an upward curvature and the middle part that has a curvature 180 degrees turned to the curvature of the side hulls. Also, I built only half of the hull, because the hull is symmetric, and then I will just copy the one part of the hull and flip it to the other side and paste it in there. You should also do the same, because most hulls of ships are symmetric and you will save yourself a lot of time. For the color design of the hull, I used quite traditional colors. So the lower part of my ship will be painted red and the upper part will be painted light blue. The red paint on the bottom of ships is actually more traditional nowadays than necessary. A lot of decades ago, you had red paint because there was copper oxide in the paint of the ships. And this copper oxide was used so that marine life was not attached to the lower part of the ship. And this copper oxide, it was basically red, or made the paint red. Nowadays you can put a lot of other toxins basically in the paint, so you can paint your ships on the lower part in any color you want. With most of the hull done, I started to place some containers into the hull. There are basically two places where a container ship carries its containers, on board and below deck. And these areas are also separated by basically plates that are put on the deck if everything below deck is loaded. Because these sections where containers are stored are basically the same over and over again, I copied and pasted them, and now comes the part where I realized that I made some big mistakes before even building the ship. You see, the container cranes are A, at the wrong position, and B, too small. So I had to make them taller, and while I did that, I also added some more details. And I also moved them to the correct position, so they could now load and unload containers basically. This took me way too long and shows that for some parts in your build you should have a plan on how these things connect with each other. So think about interfaces between build parts on larger scale builds. With all the cranes and stuff now fixed, I finally could add all the containers that are stored on board. Like most parts of the ship, the bridge is rather standard for container ship. It's in the back, it's white, and the exhausts are also here. To detail the ship, I first did some normal details that you have on such a ship. So a name, a logo on the side, and I also added some arrows on the side of the ship. And on real ships these are a little bit smaller, and I used tugboats now where they can push a ship without damaging the ship. I also added some lifeboats on the back, and I also did add some antennas to the ship. Between the dock and the ship there has to be something so the ship does not damage the dock and vice versa. So I created these spacers that you also sometimes see in real life basically. At the end I was not satisfied with the bow of the ship at all. I totally revised it. I made the bow higher and also changed its appearance. Because of these modifications, I had no more room on the front deck of the ship. I used the space to add a helicopter landing pad. At the end, the container ship I built is rather standard. My plan not really worked out, but stuff like that happens. I have to say, I am actually a little bit overwhelmed by how much work a pod is actually. You have to know, I'm also learning a lot, like build technique wise, while I build the city. And sometimes stuff just doesn't work out at all. That's why for this moment I will leave the pod as it is, and I will probably come back later to fix things. I do this to stay motivated and give you the best content I can. In the next episode I will build some industry and I'm certain it will be more cyberpunkish again. Thanks for watching till the end. Consider subscribing and liking the video. See you next time in Neo Akito.